all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pankaj Mishra, your host for today's webinar on rural retail distribution. So, first of all, I would like to welcome all of you on board, the eminent panelists from different sectors of the corporate and our moderator, Mr. Benjamin Matthew. So, before we go ahead, I would like to give you a recap of the previous webinars conducted by MART. So, this is the third webinar in the series of webinars that we have started post-lockdown to uh, provide more information and insights to the marketers and people who are planning the post-lockdown strategies. Earlier, we have conducted two webinars in last month. The first was one on the migrant laborers and the other one on the agriculture sector. Both the webinars highlighted the point that the rural markets are actually very resilient and they are amidst the this contraction in the other sectors, and also what indications are coming in the month of June and July is that on the back of better Rabi harvest, government's COVID package, and also because of the NREGA allocation, additional NREGA allocations, there has been the unlocking of the recovery from the rural markets primarily. And that is happening. You can see in the numbers of sale of tractors, small commercial vehicles, two-wheelers, cements and fertilizers also. So they're all only reflecting that the demand and the resilience of rural economy is going to be there for a long term. And also another point I like to highlight here, that this is also now reflecting in the rural distribution and even for the FMCG consumption. So what I am trying to now come to the topic, that in today's topic we are going to cover the last mile distribution and what the importance that it assumes, and as we have discussed earlier also, that how the companies are going to strategize and work on it. So I would like to now just tell you the format of the webinar. So as per the format of the webinar, we will start with a brief presentation based on the primary insights gathered from the marketplace, which will be presented by the moderator, and that will be followed by the brief presentation by eminent speakers who will talk about their learnings from the current situation and what could be the future game for the marketers to cope up the coping strategies to fight with the current situation during the pandemic. And lastly, we will also talk about that how companies are going to consolidate or retain their current market shares amidst lockdown, post lockdown, which is unlock already happening. We are 10 days away, 7 days away from the closure of the second unlock. So let me hand over the proceedings to my moderator, Mr. Benjamin Matthew. Mr. Benjamin Matthew is the head of strategy and partner at MART, and he has been the architect of the many last mile distribution and customer acquisition models in last 2 decades, which includes companies like Novartis, HUL, GE, Tata, Viron. So there are a number of MNCs who have been benefited from these strategies. So let me hand over the proceedings to Mr. Benjamin Matthew.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It's a pleasure hearing from all of you. Hope all the people are safe and sound in this unprecedented situation. So, without further ado, let me just quickly get into my piece of it. I'll be presenting a small snapshot bird's eye view of how the retail scenario looks like. After that, in order of the sequence, we'll go by Sunil Sharma first, then Dr. Sanjay Mehrotra, then Dr. Sanjay Panigrahi, and Suji Sehgal towards the last, to kind of put the entire perspective of the retail from their own areas and experiences side. So with that, as we move along, I'll give on giving out a few indications in terms of what the questions are coming in, and towards the end of it, we'll take the questions and assign it to the speakers to give out the answers. So let me just quickly introduce the speakers one by one. Let me introduce Sanjay Panigrahi. He is the former Customer Care Officer, Pidilite Industries Limited. Mr. Panigrahi has a unique experience and a rich experience in growing business and developing organizational ecosystems, building talent and organizational culture. He has handled business leadership, sales and marketing leadership, TQM, HR roles, and across consumer products and services in the FMCG and the IT-enabled services. Some of his remarkable achievements include turning around the SRES, which is the Common Service Center kind of a scenario, successfully building the market segments in Pillite, building a strong Amul brand, and building quality management and HR cultures across the Amul ecosystem. He's welcome to the webinar, Dr. Sanjay Bangre. We'll be hearing from you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Sanjay Mehrotra, Vice President, Business Excellence, HR Johnson, a division of Prism Johnson Limited. Mr. Sanjay Mehrotra, Senior Vice President, having a background in terms of commerce. Mehrotra is an alumnus of Ivy League institutions like ISB, Hyderabad and Dale Carnegie. His professional career in 1986 started with a sales rep as auto parts manufacturer in Kanpur. He moved to ACC Siemens in 1991 with a variety of different roles in terms of sales, brand management, and logistics. His tenure in the reputed organization lasts for 2 decades, which saw him lead and execute some of the most successful sales strategies and campaigns in the cement industry, not just in India, but also the Asian market. Mr. Mehrotra joined Prism Johnson in 2015 as Vice President Business Excellence to spearhead the transformation project called Udaan. Dr. Sanjay Mehrotra, welcome to the webinar. We'll be really enlightened to hear from you. Thank you so much.
One request, just Benjamin, I'm not a doctor.
Okay, sorry. I
Thank you. I might look like a doctor, but I am not. Thank you.
That's very good. Okay, interesting. Mr. Sunil Sharma, independent consultant, former channel development head for Dabur India Limited. Sunil Sharma is a seasoned FMCG and a marketing professional. Possesses commendable experience in the FMCG sales, covering both general trade, modern trade channels across the brands of Dabur. He was the best performer all throughout, an exemplary communicator and excellent people management, team building, and leadership skills. A quick learner and a smart hard worker with a positive attitude. Welcome, Mr. Sunil Sharma. Thank you so much. We'll be hearing really in-depth from your side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benji.
Finally, Mr. Sujit Sehgal, author of a very interesting book on Wall Street view of rural India. He's an equities head at a foreign bank. And welcome, Dr. Sujit. Sujit is he's an expert in the financial market with a professional experience over 27 years in various fields, mainly focusing on equities. He's recently published a very interesting book called The Wall Street View of Rural India, outlines his deep insights and observations about the rural India, gained over a decade of rural road trips across the country in about 8 to 10 states, visiting nearly hundreds of villages and interacting with various parts of the rural ecosystem. He has done a lot of work in the rural spending and retail environments, and hence he'll be able to add a fresh and interesting perspective on the topic that we are discussing today. Thank you so much, and Sujit, welcome.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Thanks.
And I think I'll just quickly set the overview note, and let me just share my screen and a presentation, and then I'll be speaking from the behind, and then we can move on. Is the screen visible to everybody?
It is.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we have a small interesting insight into what the rural retail looks like pre-COVID and the post-COVID scenarios, and during this period, whatever has happened in terms of challenges, logistics, last miles, and all those things. So we'll try and present a very brief overview of what we think from some of the primary interactions that we had on the ground is what we are presenting right now. Okay, the rural snapshots look something like this, and this is how we have broken up the rural numbers, urban rural percentages by regions we have already shared, and we also mentioned what kind of an outlay, that means what is the buying and selling capacities of these regions at the ground level. So what kind of materials they buy and what kind of sales they do on a monthly basis. Western region, pretty interesting. It's much lesser rural compared to say northern region, which is a higher rural, and the number of outlets that you are there. So roughly, it is assumed that in 6,48,000 villages, we have roughly about 8 million retail outlets. When I say 8 million retail, it includes everybody, including cement, medical stores, everybody put together, and that's the universe that we really look at. If you really look at the next piece of the game, I mean, I'm quickly running through. If you break the villages into numbers by population brackets, you will see that there are about 20,363 villages in more than 5,000 population villages. 20,000 villages above 5,000 population. Sorry. Between 2 to 5,000 population, there are 87,206, and so on and so forth. So numbers are already given on the screen. And roughly, it is estimated by experience and doing some of these researchers. We feel that these are the number of outlets in each of these brackets that exist as of now. Given this fact that we have to understand that the top two segments, which is 2 to 5K and 5K plus population villages, which account for only 17% of the villages, only 17% of the villages of the total number, but account for 50% of the rural population and 60% of the wealth. That means to say, in terms of economic value proposition, this is where entire concentration that you will see in terms of economic numbers, now product categories reaching, consumers buying, so on and so forth. That's where it really works out. In this pre and post COVID scenarios, what we see is that the major disruptions that happened in the last segments, which is 2 to 500 and less than 200 population, where literally these are people who actually were dependent on wholesale. People used to go to the small town to buy these product categories. There were hubs in transit points where they used to buy. That all got disrupted because of the sheer lockdown scenario that came in. However, some disruptions happened at this next level as well. And it is also interesting to see that as the population of the villages drop down, it is further from the nearest town as well. So in terms of distances, it starts to increase. So in the middle part, which is the 1,000 to 2,000 population and 500 to 1,000 population, there were some disruptions, but I think the road connectivity and other things, as the scenarios improved and access to logistics came about, some bits and pieces of the supply chain started to work out. But definitely, yes, the retail inventories definitely went down, and there was inventory correction that happened. That is very sure. In the top end, I think there were some supplies that consistently happened. They did switch the categories in a sense that what was essential, what was more needy, what was kind of running is what the scenarios that rolled into the entire game, and it is assumed right now by June end or so, some of the supply chains definitely had made it to these levels, and the replenishments have started to happen. So this is how the overview starting scenarios look like. Some of the categories that surely see, this is not an exhaustive list, but just a general highs and lows of the categories that we see. General groceries, biscuits, namkeen, immunity boosters, noodles, things, these saw some kind of a really increasing impact, not very significant jumps, but at least an increasing impact. Categories that really experience very low scenarios are definitely personal care, confectionery, extremely, almost all the discretionary items did see a kind of lower scenarios. Beauty products took a real hit in terms of that scenario. Perfectly, and this is how the categories worked out. Some of the new categories that have entered the baskets, which is very interesting, is germ kills, medical. I mean, I think the corona really had its impact. So, cleaning products and sanitization, these are things that you right now definitely see. Some of the health food categories, which are also in terms of behavior is translating something like packaged goods does make sense right now. I mean, that's how kind of a behavior scenario works out. Snacks are working out definitely. So these are some new categories that are kind of really put in. We do have a exhaustive list, but it was becoming difficult to kind of put it into basket. So we tried put some very basic levels and then explain the scenarios. In terms of the consumption, there's a mixed basket. Not a very clear scenario. 40% of the households say that there has been no change in consumption. 33% say that there is some change in consumption, some increase, some decrease, and 26% kind of scenario with the sample numbers that we see has some decreases. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Can I put a finger onto it? Practically a difficult scenario. Some of the very interesting categories where the real spending nosedive is definitely travel. That's a key scenario. Personal areas, as I mentioned, had a drop in terms of consumption. Discretionary products had a drop in consumption. So this is how kind of a pan-India scenario by region. We can break it down by population brackets as well, but it will become more granular as we move along. But this is the overall scenario. What has brought these disruptions? I think there are 4 or 5 categories that we can really put this scenario, and this is a period between January onwards till about June. And the key element of the entire structural breakage that happened is more in terms of the state level decision that is happening and the cross-border scenario, border sealing, and stopping those commutation is what created this entire flux in terms of the limitation in terms of reaching out to the last mile and also. So this is a very interesting scenario, but the easing of scenarios is definitely seeing a good positive trend that people are going back, but the cost of delivery and the cost of reaching is slightly increased because of a lot of the parameters that we really need to put into place. So how we overcome that and how we really look at that is time will tell. We believe closer to the festivities in the month of October to December is what our rebound scenarios is likely to trickle in much better. However, as of now, we feel that about 70% of the pre-COVID scenarios is being inched higher or reached slightly higher. So that's why the scenario stands. So key challenges that we need to really address. I don't need to talk about all these headings, in a particular manner, but very much it has disrupted the retail supply chain definitely. So on the shelf, there are essentials, there are needy products, regional players, local players also has contributed to the entire game. So there is a working out scenario that happened. Some of the retail definitely has corrected their inventory, so the average inventories are slightly lower at that level. Wholesale definitely sees a serious drop in terms of sales. It's more because of the footfalls that had to come from the lower segment of the retail chain where the direct supplies never happened. So that is definitely a piece to reckon with. As one of the speaker mentioned that brands have taken a real upbeat scenario. Is it making sense? I think we need to really look at that as well. I think one of the key important elements that we need to bring into the table is the value proposition game. I think price and value proposition equation will be right now played out because everybody is holding on to this entire consumption piece basket. I mean, if something can be taken at 10 rupees and you need to pay a premium of 2 rupees more to get the same thing, I think 10 will make a serious stand at this level. So and given the fact that the national players to regional players to local players, the quality differences are now fairly marginal. It's not a rocket science scenario that is happening. So given the scenario, this is what is going to happen. And finally, the uptake of discretionary items, I think it will take another 6 to 9 months before it starts to kind of trickle down back to the levels that we are kind of thinking of. But given all these scenarios, we still see a very positive scenario, and we see some serious upticks that can happen. So these are some drivers that are really giving out this entire sense of what is happening. Extremely good Rabi season. I think the number is that 38 million tons bought by the government. Let me just correct this number as well. We really need to understand that the government buys at 2 points in time, and if we have 285 million tons of grains that comes into the mandi, the government buys about 20% of it. That's the maximum that the government buys. This year, government has given out 1925 rupees per quintal, especially for wheat. The interesting fact is last year it was 1840. But the important point is every 1 rupee increase in the minimum support price for wheat infuses 400 crores to the rural market. That's a key element. So if that translates, I think you see that kind of push in terms of income going in. rupees 2,000 to 82.5 million farmer accounts by the month of June 2020. That's a real consumption expenditure. I think PM Kisan program really made sense. State-wise, the give out may be completely different, but these are some indications that are coming in. 16 states have recorded more than 40% enrollment into NREGA. The only caveat right now here is that the average wage is up at 206 rupees, which is up from 180 last year. And a second point is that have the work being allocated? No, not yet as of now. So this trickle down payments will come in as the works get allotted and the things come through. Food disbursement, PDS and other things extended till about November. I think those costs will be really out of the game. And micro and small enterprises seem to be starting working up, picking up the loan scenarios, and some elements of the employment started to come back at the small towns as well. So these should see some good drivers that coming in. I just missed out one more point is that the Kharif season has started off on an extremely good note. So let's see how these things shape up as well. So emerging scenarios, I think some of the two-wheeler companies have already started saying that the pre-COVID scenarios are nearly coming back to there is demand that is coming in. Most of the dealerships in the towns, small towns, has been opened up. The top retail at the village level has got at least one fundamental replenishment cycle in the unlocking phase. So that means your sales and the numbers are trying to really come up. Small towns will be easing the lockdown. I think majority of the apparel stores also seems to really come up. I think the numbers are not very clear, but the CRISIL data stated that the apparel seem to come back towards the festive season or not. Small and medium enterprises also starting production cycles, I think, from the government support. So we should see some employment generation to come through. We will look at that. And in the last number that has come is that about 12% increase in the entire Kharif season scenario is what is it is being projected. Inputs definitely are shown an uptick. So it's a very good scenario to work out. With this, I think I like to sum up my scenario is that the rural will recover much faster. I would say much earlier than urban. The government will continue its focus. I think it will still push up some more, real consumption expenditure scenarios into the game. So I think that will be a catalyst. And we already are kind of closer to the 70% scenario of pre-COVID. So I think this is a good positive segment. Having said that, the caveat is that what we have lost, we may not recover this year. So overall, the numbers in the year may be still lesser, but at least from the business side and the other side, we definitely need to see an uptick that seriously look through. With that positive side of the game, I think I am done with the presentation. Let me just close this, and I'll come back to the speakers to start commenting on their own points. Okay, just give me a moment. Right, thank you so much. That was a small snapshot of what we could present. I'd like to now open up the pointers to Mr. Sunil Sharma. You can give your insights from your industry, directions, and so and so. And what also you see how the things are going to shape up would be really great. Thank you so much. Your mic is mute.
Can you?
Yes.
You are unmuted. Is it okay now? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Benjamin. And thank you, Mark, for giving me this opportunity to speak over here. And thank you all the viewers and participants who have joined us, taking their valuable time over here. Yes, there has been a titanic shift post-COVID in the industry. Before I move forward, I'll share it with you. FMCG is the 4th largest industry, organized industry in India. So that speaks volume about how big is this. Also, what has changed now? Everyone is rebooting business from the corporate even to the working style of a ISR who goes and take the orders in the market. And that has also changed. And everyone is adopting himself accordingly. What has changed again is recalibration of consumer wallets today. So people are, putting money in essentials than on luxuries. This is the first change. Has the consumption gone down? Yes, in some categories, it has gone down drastically. And however, in some categories, it has really gone up. There's a huge shift in demand. For example, in biscuit, we have seen the Parle and Britannia results. They are booming in personal and hygiene. Two things which came up strongly now, the new categories. Immunity. Immunity was very much there, and Dabur was a major player talking about immunity through Chyawanprash. Now everyone is talking about immunity. And second is sanitization. These are the two categories everyone is today talking about. This is a new opportunity which has come up where people can encash in. The biggest issue was more than a demand, it was a disruption in supplies, So who has gained here? Who had high pipelines, they have gained in this. And who have a lesser pipeline, say of 7 days or 15 days, they have lost. Because April and May, their people have lost the major business. In June, it's been recovering, and July, obviously, it is coming on track. So at that point of a time, consumer went and they just wanted to have something to eat rather than the brand. So whatever was available, it was picked up by the consumer. So they was not waiting for their preferred brand. So brand loyalty has shifted during this time. And obviously, there will be a big challenge for some of the brands to bring back that loyalty. Beauty products have declined drastically because people are not moving out, people are staying at home, so there is no need of beautification, etc. So much money was not spent on that. Now, greater dependency on local Kirana stores. Earlier, all of a sudden, we were finding that Kirana business is going down. But in pandemic time, they are the ones who stood out. They have ensured, they have taken the most challenging situation, like doctor, nurses, police, other people, and they were also there. And, everyone has opened their shops as per the timelines or the time frames given. Yes, the home deliveries were also given. They were at the front line to face that challenge. They were under the biggest threat of COVID, but still, they opened. One for business and also to have that credibility. One is Kirana, other is e-commerce. E-commerce business have multiplied this in because people were looking home delivery and hygienic delivery. That's how the e-commerce have done exceedingly well. Value packs have changed the scenario. Everyone is going for a value pack now. Small is a large pack now. I have got a data from few of the companies. Earlier, consumer pack versus bulk pack. Consumer pack was 65% and bulk pack was 35%. During these 2-3 months, it has shifted. Now, consumer pack is 85% and bulk pack is 15%. How the scenario has changed. A clear shift in the channel dynamics. Wholesalers could send the deliveries to the smaller towns. Again, your Kirana store was a winner, and whosoever had a supply, he was a winner. Even the small people who used to supply on cycles, even they have taken a store because they were not able to supply that. Now let's go back to actually on the ground. What has happened in the rural? Earlier the model was the distributor will give a credit to the retailer, 30 days credit, 45 days credit, or a 15 days credit. That credit has gone down drastically. So distributor says, I can't take a risk. Now my problem is something happens to this guy who's on a front line. If COVID happens to him, how will I recover my money? So that have gone down. So if his outstanding of any stockist was of a 12 lakh or a 15 lakh in a month, that have come down to a 1 lakh. He's only extending credit for a few days to a fewer retailers. It's a cash sale now, number one, mostly cash sale. Number two, how we used to book the order. The salesman will go, ISR will go, and he will enter the shop, check each and every SKU. Now that has not been allowed. They have, if you have gone now for a shopping in these stores, they have put in a string out there. So you cannot go inside. So whatever you want, you have to give an order from outside. We have never seen queues outside a normal Kirana store. Yes, the queues were followed at most of the places with masking. Now the problem is he cannot push. So he will depend upon whatever the demand he's saying. You know, if he's got a range of 24 products, earlier he used to book an order of 18 or 19. Today is only booking an order of 7 to 8, which is essential. A, because of the cash. B, you know, consumer is not asking for much of a stock. And then, you know, the value packs are most important today. Whosoever has got a value pack, they go for that. You know, they'll rather go for a value pack rather than a branded goods in. So if there is a choice, so you'll say, give me a value pack. The consumer wants a value pack right now. So now the biggest, the other problem is earlier the companies used to sell the NPDs, new product range. Now they're not welcoming the new product range of any category except if it is on a immunity or it is on a sanitization. That has been welcome, but the other categories have taken a biggest toll. So most of the companies have launched all these packs immediately. Be it Dabur, GSK, you know, they have launched the huge range of all these packs. The Kada has been launched, the Giloy has been launched, which was not there earlier, which was not focused earlier now, right? Now the biggest issue again is the non-availability of supply people. That's the biggest challenge because people have gone back to their places. Even if the rural salesman who used to come from 20 kilometers cycling around, he's not available. The manpower costs have gone down or gone up at the moment. But the biggest advantage which has been taken is by the immunity category and the sanitization category. They are in a huge in demand. Yeah, that's all from me for the time being.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the enlightening session. We'd like to now
When you're not audible.
Dr. Sanjay, sir, your mic is mute.
Hi. So whatever just now my Sunil has just said, so we were just before this discussion when we went, I think, online, before that we were just discussing about it. So one thing which has gone for a toss, and that's what we were discussing, is the brand loyalty as of now. And that's what we were discussing, me, Sujit and Sunil were discussing about it. That the local Kirana shop has taken a lifeline type of situation for us. Everything is available there. But if I see, so far as my segment is concerned, because we are into the construction business, okay, and being the three basic needs, that is roti, kapda, makan, we fall into that category only. Makan is a basic need, but still we are struggling. Even in that also, if you see, yes, as your data has also suggested that cement is a very good in demand in rural areas. Yes, we also have a cement plant in our sister concern is there. So where we are selling very good quantity of cement, we have sold good quantity of cement in May as well as in June also. Yes, April was a totally washout. But in May and June, we have sold very good quantity, almost 100% of what we could sell. But so far, if you come to tiles, so tiles comes under home decor because a person needs tiles. So you can say to decorate his house, to lighten up the things. He may or may not, especially in rural areas where the demand is actually coming from, there a person might work without tile also. He can get the house constructed and start living into that, and he might postpone that tile things. So that way, our we have regained our say roughly around we are somewhere around 55 to 60% of our usual business. We have not reached up to 100% business. So that is what right now we are into. So far as last mile delivery is concerned, for each last mile delivery for any category, there has to be demand. The basic thing is demand. So once there is a demand, everything will come into place and will fall into place, and people will start working in that direction. I give you a very, very simple example of my personal experience that one fine day during this lockdown period only, we wanted to buy some utensil for the kitchen, which was I think missing or something like that. My daughter wanted that. You won't believe that the local kirana shop, we had to just connect with him, and he himself, the owner himself, came with 5 types of those utensils just below my building and asking, okay, whichever you want, आप खुद select कर लीजिए, ले लीजिए कौन सा लेना है. And since it was a very curious case, I myself also got down with my wife and I asked him, I said, why have you come? Why you could have sent some of your boys? He said, sir, दुकान बंद है, मैं अकेला हूँ, लड़के तो कहीं नहीं. So this is last mile delivery. And after that, that piece of utensil was costing only 78 rupees. And then he left that piece, whichever we selected, and he said, sir, आप Paytm कर दीजिएगा. This is the number. He did not bother to confirm also. So the situation has come up to that level. What you were saying, Mr. Sharma, is also right. That local person are there who are helping you out. Similarly, last mile delivery, if you see in all, we are living in Bombay or in Delhi, where we are living in housing societies. So all these ladies, they are forming groups and calling for all the necessity items like veggies, like bread and everything. We hardly step out of our flat. Everything is delivered at our flat only. So similarly, for even if for FMCG, for beauty products, for even for maybe as you said, automobiles or two-wheelers or whatever it is, if there is demand, the ways would be there. Coming to the main challenge, and the challenge is of availability of transportation. Trucks are idle, drivers are not there. Over 40% drivers are not there. Even so far as drivers problem, it is already there, because in today's time, nobody wants his son to become a driver now. How will you get a driver with the next generation? 15 years from now, 5 years from now, how will we get drivers? So that problem has already started, and the way the migrant laborers and whatever we have seen the problem, which was continuing for about a month or so, they were on the street and all. After reaching back to their places, are they going to think that my son is going to become a driver? So that problem is going to worsen in future also. That's something which is a bigger problem. So coming, if you see, so my submission is this only, that there should be enough demand for anything. And right now the demand is, as Sunil has also rightly said, the demand is of essentials, demand is of immunity is a new category now. Okay, demand is of those items. There's hardly any demand of home enhancement, home decor. All these things are on a back burner now. Right now, yes, even if you go into electronics, the demand would be of dishwasher. The demand won't be of a plasma or a QLED TV of 65 inches. A person can right now, we can manage with a 42 inches one, which we have already got. We might not go, even if we were thinking of having a bigger one, we might put it on hold. But yes, dishwasher is a necessity now. So similarly, in that also you can see whichever is there. And so right now the thing is that one should have proper demand for all these things. Rural areas, yes, they started giving demand initially, because if you see, the lockdown implementation was not as strict as it used to be, as it should have been in rural areas. So initially in the month of April also, and up to mid-May also, many rural areas were ineffective of lockdown, because everything was open there, and the business was going as usual. So whatever they had piled up till March, that got sold during April and mid-May, and then the demand started coming up. And when after mid-May or in the month of June, once the companies started manufacturing things, that is how the demand is coming. And again, the things are going into their shelves, and slowly it is going into the areas, only essentials, not the luxury items. Okay, so that is one thing which we have to solve. This is right now, I want to say only this.
Thank you so much for the enlightened view, Sanjay. It was very good, and I think you mentioned the right points. How the things are shaping up. You also compared between the urban and the rural. Very interesting. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure hearing you out, and we'll come back with the questions as we kind of get it. I now put it back to Mr. Sanjay Panigre. If you can enlighten us with your real depth knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. I think some very good points have been made by Sunil ji and Mehrotra ji. I will just touch upon, because I think you had a brilliant presentation, very insightful. I will just touch upon a few things which I have got feedbacks from market, which I have read, because none of us can go out. So the question of ourselves getting empirical evidence is true. We are hearing through virtual mediums, we are hearing through colleagues, we are hearing through the newspaper, media. But having said that, there are 2 or 3 points I would like to make. I will structure my 10 minutes into 3 parts. One part is the consumer behavior. Are we seeing any changes in that? Because rural is growing, everyone knows about that. Second part is that whether in the last mile distribution, what are the challenges we see and how this might fan out. And the next part is that the economic impetus that the government is giving in the rural areas, will it translate to higher consumption? So these are the small 3 parts. So in the first part, in the consumer behavior, I have 4 or 5 points to make. One is that there is a clear preferential, which my earlier panelists have said, from essential to non-essentials. So having said that, nutrition, in which you have categories like biscuits, which is comfort food, or hygiene. In hygiene, I will divide into all the 3 parts: skin care, oral care, as well as hair care, and general well-being, which is health. And I think Sunil ji did mention about Chyawanprash, even Horlicks. We had a huge growth. I think Unilever made a killing at a time, which they obviously did not know that Corona will happen, but during this period, Horlicks sales have gone through the roof. So the consumer preference, if you talk about today, I think it falls into 4 stack. In a stack, they will fall in descending order. First is safety. In anything that they buy, they engage in. Second is pricing. Third is where do they buy? Is the place close to my home? And the 4th part, I'm not very sure about the last leg of the delivery chain, is whether your transaction is cashless. This is the first point that I wanted to make. Second is that out of home is completely out. Any categories any company had which had a out of home segment means let us look at flavored meal, let us look at aerated cold drinks, let us look at confectionaries, let us even products that you will use to go out of home, beauty products, grooming products, which you will normally use when you want to go out. Those are their sales have been pretty impacted. South India, for example, temples are a very big point where the out-of-home sales takes place. And whether rural or urban, Horeca is a segment across India. In Horeca, is very small way in rural also. The small eateries, etc. Whatever used to get sold there has been down. The next point I would make is that what are we seeing as the impact on the local brand? In local brand, I will divide into 2 categories. There were products which were selling loose. And I think in edible oil, the loose oil still, I won't be surprised, it is still 75%, and branded and even labeled will not become more than 25 to 30%. So, and tea, loose tea. So these have been hugely impacted by supply chain. The people used to bring in this from the mandis, etc. So, is that giving a growth to the branded tea, branded oil? I would say yes. That figures say so. In July, early July, we have figures coming out from most of the companies, and it does show that tea and oil have got a good growth from the rural areas. Consumption of local brands, here I would say that if there is a supply chain issue, yes, local brands do play in. But normally local brands, counterfeit product, they normally played on the price and promotion front. I don't think that is going to play out. People are more now interested in getting the stocks in time rather than what scheme the company is giving. There I think the most of the supply chain being impacted. I would rather say that some of the growth which is coming to the organized players, to the organized national brands or even major brands, they are having a positive growth because of the shift from there. And number two is that this is a psyche of the recessionary economy, and the history says so, that whenever there is a recession, customer does not downgrade to another brand. He would still see value for money, and if there is a smaller pack available of a product which he trusts, he will do that. Suppose he was buying 10 rupees, he will go back and buy a 5 rupees pack of the same brand, because he feels that I may have less money, but I would not like waste my money on a brand that I do not know just because it is cheap. This is a psyche of a recessionary economy normally experienced in earlier recessions. So that, I think, plays out, that also shows into the growth of the essentials of the major players. Next one is that there has been fights. Yes, there has been fights amongst brands, mostly out of supply chain issues between major companies also. If your market shares are very close to each other, then if you have an impact, then the other brands have got a benefit. Whether that will retain, possibly, but this has definitely given an opportunity of trials, consumer going out and trying new products which they have never experienced because their brand is not available. Whether this is an opportunity, I possibly will think there is. The last point is that I will divide into three parts as far as the consumer is concerned. What he will continue to consume, what he will stop consuming, and what new things that he might add to his basket. What he will continue to consume will be essentials, food. Consumption may increase depending on the category. What he will stop consuming, Ajay said, out of home is completely out for some time. Beauty, grooming, hair colors, all this he will not see at least taking a traction in next 5 to 6 months, even if a vaccine comes back, because there the sentiment is playing against. What new he might consume, as my earlier panelist also says, is hygiene products, as you said, health and well-being products. And also another category I would like to mention is DIY. Many of the things the consumer would ask a person to come in his home and repair, he would like to do it himself by buying products. So I am conscious of the fact that many companies who sell such products, their sales have gone really high in rural areas. This is as far as consumer behavior is concerned. Next part I will come down to is the last mile supply chain. In the last mile supply chain, I think it's too premature, Benjamin, to say that it is post-COVID. I don't think it is post-COVID. We had 4 lockdowns, end March to end May, and we have just first one unlock has happened. And in the unlock, we have seen a variety of complexities. New areas have come under containment. Areas which have gone out of containment has again come back into containment. Then it has sometimes it has gone out to small towns. So we have a very complex situation. Somewhere the production is still under containment, somewhere the supply chain is still under, so distributor's town is under containment, somewhere the distributor is open, but the rural village is under containment. So I think this is a temporary phenomena. To base our decision on such kind of supply chain disruption, to see that it is giving a growth to the brand, is possibly a little premature. That's my personal point of view. But having said that, yesterday one large FMCG's report had come up where they are saying that pre-COVID, if they are producing 100 SKUs, they have come back to 0.8. That means 80% of their production has come back they are producing now. But in rural areas there has been a shift, as my earlier panelists were saying, in terms of preference for the small packs. So that's one thing which has changed. But then it also means that as far as drop sizes are concerned, to the retail outlets, to the wholesaler, the drop sizes, that variety also has, that mix also has changed. Having said that, driver is an issue. So first leg and second leg is getting impacted. I have heard that dealers, wholesalers who want full truckload, half a Tata AC or full Tata AC, they are getting priority in supplies. People who can go and pick up the stocks from the towns, from the distributor, they are getting a supplies. But micro market, let us say below 5,000, below 2,000, whether companies are having the manpower to supply, etc., is different story in different segments. I don't think we can generalize at all. It all depends on the spread of COVID in specific areas and where the distributors are located. But having said that, yes, in spite of that, rural is having a good growth, and that's a very positive sign. But this is I have been talking to some of the last mile delivery guys, and I'm very happy to say that many of them have seen a very positive traction in their business. But having said that, this has been a challenge. Last mile delivery has always been a challenge because of the cost to serve. Does this give these companies an opportunity for people coming to them to use their services, to use technology to be able to serve them better. And possibly this is a trial time for them, for many of the big companies to try out such many alternatives which has happened. COVID has given an opportunity on that. Wholesale has been hugely impacted, hugely impacted, whether it is a city wholesale, it is a semi-urban town wholesale, or it is a feeder market wholesale. People don't want to go to buy from there. Wholesalers, one of the major point was the schemes that the companies were giving them. That was their playground, and that was their competitiveness. Companies have mostly stopped schemes. I think April में तो खत्म ही हो गया था scheme का, जून में थोड़ी सी शुरू हुआ है. लेकिन but still if a company was giving X percentage, now it is X minus delta X. 5% जो scheme देते थे आज के दिन पे 1% scheme दे रहे हैं. So that in one hand has given back some money to the company to possibly use it in last mile delivery. Because I don't think the kind of deliveries which are taking place in rural areas, many companies are saying I was going to 50,000 towns, now I will go to 70,000 towns. My question is, why did you go earlier? Why are you going now? The demand was already there because the cost of serve was very high. So now that money which is being saved by ATL and BTL might give an opportunity to the company to spend a little bit more money in getting and serving the last mile. Then new product launches, if company had invested and thought of doing now completely it's investment which has to look for the payback. Coming to the last point as regard to government impetus, yes, government has done a lot, but I think the main thing in government, all of us know, has been implementation. But I have a lot of hope on the Prime Minister, because I have seen him working on the Jan Dhan scheme and how he implemented, and today the entire country benefits out of it, how rigor it was. If the current, in June 20th, what he announced at 50,000 crores in terms of the Garib Kalyan Yojana in 25 schemes in 6 states and 125 days, if that rigor government takes it up and says that in 125 days we will blow up 50,000 crores, and we will see that there are as much as 25 schemes, out of it 20 are construction related schemes, and these constructors are not only skilled, they are also unskilled as well as skilled. There is a carpenter required, there is a plumber required, there is Gram Panchayat being, houses being done, schools being repaired, lot of things. 20 construction, 5 only are non-construction related schemes. So I think that's a very big impetus. Whether that will translate into consumption is something which possibly we will need a little more time to, because that's government expenditure does give an impetus. But in which way, how, that's something which we will have to wait and see. But having said that, I will make my last point, is that there is a lot of halla gulla as far as the rural growth story is concerned. My question is that, is the rural growth story temporary, or it is going to shift back? Out of the 6 or 7 points on which I think the rural growth story has come out, number one is that urban is growing, for the comparative saying that the urban is poor hai, तो हम rural में बहुत ज़्यादा grow कर रहे हैं. Number one. Number two is that urban markets से semi-urban markets में rural में wholesale से बहुत माल जाता था. वो segment खत्म हो गया, so that has got added. So it's a shift in demand. The next point is that migration. In 6 states, migrant population has come back. But when they came back, did they have money with them to consume? Today, have the government given them the jobs? But yes, it will add to the essentials consumption. To what extent and how long it will last? At the end of the day, will there be a permanent vocation available to them to stay back in rural area, or they will go back? That's $1 million question. Good harvest is a very positive sign that will change the structure of demand for at least for this year. So after saying these 6 elements, 5 may go back. After COVID resides, the 5 may go back. But having said that, this is an opportunity for many of the challenges that we rural marketeers have faced, and companies will experience that the power of the rural economy and what kind of structural changes they can bring to their systems and processes to take rural market, their product growth story to a different level in rural. I think COVID has given that opportunity, and that's the limited point I would like to put. Thank you. Benjamin.
Please unmute.
Thank you so much, Pangay sir. I think you corrected some of my own thought processes as well. Thank you so much. These are preliminary information. We should not generalize that scenarios. Yeah, you are absolutely right. With all the information from the speakers, I now would like to invite Sujit. For you, this is a completely different experience of the debate. I think you should bring a fresh perspective. So handing it over to you, your point of view.
Yeah, Benjamin, thank you very much. And glad to be here today. Just before I start, I just want to start with a little disclaimer that I'm speaking in my personal capacity here and not as part of my employer. And all the views expressed are very much personal. In fact, they are all emanating from the book that I have recently written. It's called Wall Street View of Rural India, which covers 10 years of my travel into rural India, going to close to 100 villages across 10 states in the country. And that's the insights and experiences on rural spending patterns, consumption patterns in the feeder towns, etc. that I have seen. And that is the reason I'm here today, and I would like to express my views. I would actually like to stay at the very beginning that I agree with a lot of points Mr. Panigrahi has raised, and I'll touch upon several of them while I go through my few minutes. So I'll divide my comments in three parts. First, talking about how do I see the rural sector in general, the opportunity, and whether there is a catch-up to urban. One of the points that Benjamin also you had mentioned. So I'll try to address these things head on. So I think so before I come down to the here and now and the future in the context of the COVID, but before that, a little bit bigger picture views. I think what I have seen in my decade-long visits deep into rural India is that there are some major changes taking place, which have to be appreciated and understood by marketeers and people who are looking at the rural economy closely, including even policymakers, which are going to have a lot of impact on consumption trends from rural India. The first point is that it is becoming increasingly a services consuming ecosystem. Historically, it has all been about products, goods, small sachet packs, price points, and therefore the logistics, supply chain, and rural reach. But I think increasingly the basket of consumption of a rural household is shifting towards services, right? And also we know the telecom revolution in the country, the 4G revolution, smartphones, etc. A lot of information awareness is there, e-commerce coming through. So I think services on one side and the digital channel itself, you will be surprised how deep it has already gone into rural India, even villages of households of less than 500, which was in your chart, Benjamin, on the extreme right side. So that is one shift that we have to all keep in mind. The second thing is women, the role that women are playing in the rural society and rural household as decision makers of spending, even as earners. So all the earning which is coming from outside the farm, as we know, most of our farmers are landless farmers. So the most of the earning that is coming outside the farm can also be attributed to women. So they are playing an increasing role in spending decisions. The third thing is income generating spending. So when there is an incremental dollar in the wallet of the farmer, how does he try to spend it? The insight I have got is that they are focusing on income generating assets. If I have to spend this, can it lead for me to better income in the future? Therefore, maybe we are seeing a good take up in two-wheelers today as ahead of the auto sector pack, because they see a two-wheeler as something that can be used as income generating to deliver something into a small business, delivering milk to households. So that is becoming very important thing to think about. Mr. Panigrahi mentioned about income of the farmer itself. I think a very big assumption one is making is that the farmer income is going to rise or plateau because of the government help. What is the trajectory of the farmer's income itself? I think that is a very important aspect. One has to be very clear what we are assuming. And I actually agree with Mr. Panigrahi. Most of these impetus that has been given is short term. And unless the long term issues are addressed, one should not make an assumption that the farmer income levels and therefore available disposable income will be rising in the medium term. We have to rather assume a flat to maybe even a little bit of pressure on rural disposable income in general. This is a point which most people may find it a very different point, but we can debate it further. So that was my first point. Second thing is coming to the here and now. What is happening to demand right now? So here, another interesting concept, and I also talk about in my book, is called the hierarchy of cash flows. How does a farmer or a villager behave when he gets that $1 extra in his pocket? And many rural marketeers in India and people who are foreign companies as well have got this one wrong. They have always assumed the first flush, slightly better crop price, a slightly better crop, straight away is going to lead to higher consumption. So that is actually not the case. The reason being, in the last 5 to 10 years, the Indian farmer and the Indian rural household has become increasingly indebted. They are under loans, and therefore the first increase in their cash flow usually goes to repay down some debt. If not, big ticket debt, at least to get their family gold back home. You must have seen the surge in growth for a company like Muthoot Finance, who's basically lending to a villager against his family jewelry. So they will first spend the money to repay that, bring that gold back home. Second flush, they may go and buy some extremely important things like education. When I said services, education has become a very important part of how a rural household is looking at their spending. So only after that do they look at buying more day-to-day consumption or slightly small ticket or big ticket discretionary consumption items. So I think that's where we are right now. Yes, government has put more money in the pockets of people, and that is going to help. But also we must remember the role of financing, as I said, in the rural economy. Most of the feeder towns, when you go to these retail outlets, they are dependent on financing. NBFCs was a big supplier of financing to these traders, the trade community, the trade channel. That has become very scarce now. So even if there is demand, and even if there is tomorrow a logistics, trucks open up and drivers come back, the financing to the trading community has to open up so that they can get their working capital financing and keep buying from the brand owners. So that is the second point. And the last point before I end is about the emerging opportunities. What is happening a little bit more long term. So I think there, a very interesting point again, Mr. Panigrahi mentioned that about why didn't you do this before? In my travel of all these years, I have also had the same revelation to me that every year over the last decade, we have met companies who said, oh, I have just started rolling out my rural reach, and my next phase of growth is going to come from my rural outreach. So the interesting point which is getting highlighted during this COVID area is that there's actually still a lot of value to be derived by marketeers by going deeper into the rural last mile actually. So although Benjamin, you talked about 8.5 million sort of outlets, there are very few companies who have direct access to even maybe half of that, maybe even 1/3 of that they don't have. They go through distributors, wholesalers, the whole chain. But if you build the direct access, I think there's a lot of value to be extracted out of that as you look at growth post-COVID, maybe 1 year down the line when you're building for the next phase. I think it's a very interesting emerging way to look at this. The second thing is, which is linked to that, again I mentioned in my book, awareness, the underappreciated solution. I think today there is a lot going for rural India. A lot of schemes, a lot of government things, a lot of products, a lot of services, a lot of solutions. What is lacking is actually awareness at the grassroots level by the farmer of what is available to him, what is a smart way of accessing what is already available. So again, for a marketeer, the opportunity for the longer term is to do the outreach and build awareness of what he's got. And my last, so actually I think post-COVID, competition may increase in the rural last mile because more people will realize that they missed out or they were not enough visible, and they will increase that. So current companies who are currently available deeply into rural markets might see more competition. And the last point, again, tying up with my very first point, long-term opportunities will lie in services-oriented areas and women-oriented, products and consumptions and decision-making. And one important thing that will emerge, if my point about earning income being under stress is true, then there will be seen more rent versus buy decisions, aggregators coming in rather than like a more like Uberization of the rural economy, and product as a service. So if incomes are constrained, more and more marketeers will have to look at how they can package their product as a service, and aggregators will have to see how they can rent out products rather than asking everybody to spend that money to buy. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sujit. It's a welcome change in terms of the thinking part as well. You brought in a real good perspectives. I think the renting part was a very interesting note that you mentioned, that if the incomes really go down, one of the economic principles is to really look at the the renting part as well as aggregators and service providers that may really come into play. I think we have kind of run through all the speakers. We have got a few amount of questions. So let me just take up the first question, and any of the speakers can answer. So I'm just writing out the question to you. Consumers are getting paranoid about hygiene. How is that the consumption of personal care category has fallen? And is there an impact due to the supply side? I will be open to anybody to answer that. Maybe Sanjay Panigrahi sir or Sunil Sharma sir, either or. Do I need to repeat the question? Your mic
No,
is...
I think when he's talking about hygiene, we are not talking about only hand sanitizers or washing your hand 10 times and things like that. Hygiene has brought in a cleanliness part of it. When there is a pandemic of this nature, I think this is the exact question I asked to one of my friends in a FMCG company, is that how is your oral care sales increasing?
Yeah.
How is what a hair oil has got to do with COVID? He said, no, sir, it's all about personal cleanliness. So inside the house, so you will see that most of the companies in all the three categories, skin care, wash, as well as oral care and hair care, although hygiene has gone into cleanliness more rather than only sanitization. This is my reading of the situation, and this is across urban as well as the sphere. People want to, they are inside the house, they don't want to remain unclean. A whole day they are spending inside. Inside living has become the year of the day. So that will be my take on the. But at the same time, things like Vaseline or a little high-end personal care product haven't had in growth because people feel that this is non-essential. But hair oil, yes. Hair color, no. So there are fine distinctions on there. That's my view, sir.
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, it's a perception in the minds of the consumer how they want to really look at this and then take an informed decision around it.
Yes.
And
yes.
In that sense, we might definitely see some kind of a serious behavior change coming out of the scenarios.
Possibly. There are big opportunities.
Okay. I have a second question. Is that why the bulk pack sales have gone down vis-a-vis consumer packs post-lockdown? So very interesting question. I mean, why smaller packs are really making a sense? Sunil sir, would you like to answer? Your mic is on mute.
Is it okay now? Yeah.
Yes.
You see, as I shared in my talk, the finance, no one is extending the much of a credit in. So bulk packs are always expensive. If you buy a shampoo pack, the bottle would cost you 50 rupees. With a pouch pack is only of 1 rupee. Number one. Presently, initially there was a sale of bulk pack in a 1 week or 2 weeks when the lockdown started. After that, once they started getting the deliveries, they have shifted to the smaller packs. You see, first thing is retailer is also not keeping the SKUs as they used to keep it. One of the example I'll give you, it's on front of me. The Ajay Kiryana store in Samda in Jammu, in the Jammu district. He used to buy 20,000 rupees worth of goods, right, on credit. Today he's buying only of 6,500 rupees goods, right? So he is not keeping. So the consumer is also not buying. And obviously there has been a decrease in earnings of the people. That's why they are not buying the bulk pack. They are buying the smaller pack.
Okay, very interesting. I think you're mentioning that they are actually stretching their the resources that they are available at their end, probably in the anticipation that if these scenarios continue, then that's how it might shape up. Very interesting, I think.
One more thing, one more thing is coming out now. You'll actually get a genuine sale now. Earlier, whosoever used to extend credit or will give supply, will put the stock. Today, retailer is not interested. He said, this is my demand and you want a cash from me. So I only want this much of a stock. So SKU keeping has gone down also.
Okay, so there's a kind of correction as well. Perfectly.
That's right.
Okay. Just one more question. Does migratory labor disrupted or created extra burden to the rural supply chain? it's a very interesting question. Is the migrated labor created a burden for the rural supply chain?
May I take that?
I think you can take that, Sanjay sir.
Yeah. So you see, the migrated labor, there is different kind of narratives. You know, when this thing first of all took place, we have about 13 crore people which are migrated. Out of these, 9 crores are about interstate and 4 crores are intrastate. Out of these 9 crores, for the first time in the March seminar, I saw a figure which said that only 2.3 crores have come back.
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
I was thinking entire 9 crores have come back, or maybe 90% has come back, because there is no way of finding out, you know. And you saw the pictures and photographs, and those clouded your thinking more than saying what is the extent of people. There is no data. And I read about when this June 20th Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Yojana jab aaya, usme pehli baar ke liye government said that is only 1 crore which has come back. So you are 200% more. Now the point is, they are saying only 1 crore people have come back, out of which they are saying a major portion is Bihar and major portion is UP. So they have defined 116 districts, out of which, except for West Bengal, all other states are there. So my point is that when these people have come back, there are two kinds of people, skilled and unskilled. अभी जो unskilled लोग हैं और जो skilled लोग हैं, वो जब शहर में भी रहते थे, how many days of savings do they have to last? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? That money they would have taken back and gone home, whether they have walked down or they have gone by bus, there, whatever it is. I don't think that's sufficient enough unless they have a vocation to survive. So initial euphoria of those people coming back. See, just adding people does not mean demand. Okay, so nor does it mean a long-term sustainability. So now that is why I was saying this 50,000 crores देने के बाद में क्या, 125 दिन के बाद क्या, वो कारपेंटर कहाँ जाएगा, गांव कितना काम मिलेगा उसको, जो काम मिलता था उसको दिल्ली बॉम्बे में, उसको कितना, प्लम्बर को कितना काम मिलेगा. So I think at some point of time he will go back, because this is something which we have been discussing for a very long period of time. You know, rural employment is a very big subject. Can we say that just because of COVID, government will put in money and suddenly people will love to stay in rural area? Though I would like them to stay in rural, the quality of life is much better in rural area. So I think unless it is treated well, this is going to be a strain on the rural, and which government cannot afford. Just cannot afford. Bihar elections are just on the board, and they would not like any sentiment in the rural areas to become bad. Thankfully, rural has been less COVID impacted. That's a good point of thing, but we do not know what will happen in future. But we will have to find out ways and means, as Sujit Sahu was saying. Agri has come down from 72% to only 39% of the years from the agri. But point is, non-agri services जो है, वो segment के अंदर क्या opportunities है? Like my friend, Sodi, he was saying that 15,000 crore which government has given, 10,000 रुपया करके किसी को अगर बेल देते हैं, तो सुबह शाम को 100 रुपया उसको मिलेगा दूध करके. Very good idea. But this requires huge implementation, huge implementation. और ऑपरेशन फ्लड को होने के लिए 30 साल लग गया. 15,000 crore कच्चा करके गांव लेवल में ये करने के लिए, what rightly has been pointed out, multiple ministries, multiple work. So that changes the structure of the system. Just merely they are coming back and staying in the pan does not give rise to demand on a long-term basis.
I think I agree with Mr. Panigrahi here, Benjamin. If I could just jump in,
Please.
this whole topic about migrant laborers. I have always been saying that he is a reluctant returnee. He's a reluctant returner. Please understand. He doesn't want to be in the village. He has left the village and gone. He doesn't know farming anymore. His father and grandfather were the farmers. He doesn't even know farming. So he's come back. Yes, he has enrolled for Narega work. Government is going to struggle to be able to deliver Narega projects to all of them. And also remember, the urban wage is 2.5 times the rural wage. So the first opportunity that he gets of going back, he's going to go back. So he's not going to even stay back there. So it is a short-term thing. He's there for a few months. He's not going to involve himself in farming. And as Mr. Panigrahi said, whatever savings he had in the cities, he spends that. Narega work, maybe 30-40% of them will get it for a few months. And the moment urban opens up in a little bit bigger way, they're all coming back.
Plus
I
education.
would also like
Plus
to add here,
education.
I just want to add here what Sujit and Sanjay sir has said, that I can see just in front of my building only, I can see there's a building construction.
Your sound is completely missing.
Maybe Ben, you can proceed to the next question.
Okay.
We have
Sanjay, I'll
Philip.
come back. Are you there?
Then maybe get him back. In the meantime, you can get to the next question.
Okay. Sujit, there is a very clear question that is addressed to you, is that in the years you mentioned that the rural indebtedness has increased over time. Is the rural indebtedness the real reason for the growth that has come in rural, or you would really say that this can continue like this for a period of time? Your thoughts on this?
No, very, very good question, very pertinent question, and I am a strong, very vocal about this. In my book also, I've spent a lot of chapters on this topic, and I strongly believe that there were two phases in the rural income cycle. There was a phase when minimum support prices were going up. We had few good monsoons. The NREGA schemes were launched, and there was a kind of a euphoria, and asset prices were going up. Land prices were going up. Industrial houses were buying land to put up estates. Gold price was going up, like is going up even now. So as a mixture of this, I call it a heady cocktail. Because of that, the income was looking very strong, and they were spending. But when all this turned a corner and went south, when the NREGA project died up, minimum support price increases became very tiny, low single digits. Asset prices didn't go anywhere for half of the decade. That's when, surprise question, why did consumption not crater? Simple answer, it was the loans. There is a street in Madhya Pradesh, in a village 100 kilometers from Indore, in a small town, one village, one street of 100 meters, which has got 15 financial services companies, 15 financial services companies in a 100-meter stretch, 100 kilometers from Indore. There is so much oversupply of financing, it has become so easy. The government, through the Kisan Credit Card scheme, has increased the lending value on that land that the farmer has. And they are not monitoring the end use. 80% of the Kisan Credit Card is supposed to go for farming related activities. But there is no way you can monitor the end use. Most times, bulk of it is going for consumption, small ticket consumption. So it is this loans, the easy availability of loans, cheap loans. The KCC loans are at 4% per annum. This cheap loans, easy availability of loans has led to the consumption trends being flat to firm, although the fundamentals of the farm economy were actually deteriorating over the last 3 to 5 years.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I think I'll take one or two questions more, and then I can give it to Mr. Pradeep Kashyap. He's also there in the call, so he would like to have a small word with you. This is a question to Sunil Sharma sir. Is it too early for businesses to redesign or rethink or reevaluate the strategies of distribution post these kind of unprecedented scenario, or it's good to go looking at how things we have done in this country? So your thoughts around it.
I think it is a good time to change. This is very unprecedented which has happened, which has taught us many things. There are many norms which is gonna go, and there are many new norms which is gonna come in. So how I describe it: rescue, revival, and reinvention. These are the mantras for the future. Rescue, revival, reinvention.
So your point of view is that you need to reevaluate things.
Oh yes.
And take the perspective and then look out at different strategy.
Risk-taking ability of everyone have gone down. Be it a big distributor, be it a small retailer. So no one wants to extend that credit. We used to have that facility and how we used to do our business. That's the first bigger change which is happening in now. So no one wants to take that risk. So therefore, you have to change your strategies accordingly.
Perfect. I think last question again. I think Mr. Sanjay Panigri and Mr. Sanjay Mehrotra, either of them could answer it in their own perspective. Is that is manpower a major issue, especially in the skilled and the trained manpower availability? Isn't there more opportunity for automations or those kind of things that need to come in, or even technology to come in? So how do you perceive this scenario to move forward?
Yes, there is opportunity for automation because if you see a latest McKinsey survey also, that says the digital adoption during lockdown has gone up. If you see only three basic things, that is banking, grocery, and entertainment also. So banking, which used to be roughly around 50%, that has gone up to 73% in last 3 months. Entertainment, which used to be only 40%, has gone up to 64%. And grocery, which was just 25 to 30% somewhere, it has gone up to 61%. So adoption of technology is there. So that's why for that you need to have more skilled people. Like even if I as I give you the example of laborers. So the laborers who were there, who were on the construction site, suppose if they have gone back from a metro town to a smaller town, and if they want to do something there, and suppose if they want to become a delivery boy of any this Zomato or Flipkart or Amazon, they need to be that much of IT or IT savvy that they can understand all these lingos to work for that industry.
Perfect. One last question.
Benjamin, I would like to add here.
Yeah.
In terms of technology in rural, you see the way you showed the picture and the penetration of data. That's one point as far as digital technology is concerned.
Okay.
And then there are bigger markets and smaller markets, right? So having said that, I see a lot of scope of technology which already has been taken by companies in increasing efficiency. That is in supply chain efficiency, collection of orders, making your salesperson's PJPs or route plans covered by through technology, trying to know what is he doing, how much is he selling. All that has happened, but that will increase to efficiency only. Will this reduce the cost to serve? Partly. That's a big question. Partly it will serve the cost to serve. For example, someone was telling me from a big FMCG company that 20% of their rural dealers gave them orders through the app. Not through the call center, not through the distributor, but 80% continues to call back to their sales representative or directly to the distributor and give the orders. So once we go to the app, you have a variety of schemes available, a lot of things the app gives you. He said only 20%. And who were this 20%? These 20% were only the biggest wholesalers or biggest retailers in 10,000 plus population. Below 10,000 population, or smaller markets, population is not the right criteria, use of technology was less. But yes, use of technology can bring in efficiency, but you have to always keep in mind, whatever is the way, cost to serve in rural will be partly higher than urban because it's a dispersed demand. How high and how much of profitability you may reduce for rural consumption is a $1 million question for people. This is where most of the companies have faltered. Most companies have looked at profitability rather than top line profit. But today, COVID has shown them, most of them has gone for profits and not profitability.
I think Benjamin,
that's my take.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, Benjamin, just one point I want to add. I know probably we're running out of time, but I think there is a more bigger need, and also we are seeing signs of that already happen, is use of technology in farming itself. So one is distribution, supply chain, ordering. That's an absolutely fair point. But technology used in farming itself, whether it is testing the soil, using the right cropping patterns, taking multiple crops, which will improve the revenue of the farmer. I think that's where, and then mechanization, of course. If you want to take 3 crops in a year, you have to have very advanced machines which can dry your soil and make it ready for the next sowing. Yeah. So I think that's what we need. It's happening in a small way, but that's where we need a bit more adoption of
Sujit, I would like to pick your mind. There's a very interesting point that in farming, the moment you do mechanization, does it reduce the number of people employed? Hence, the employment coefficient, that is how much of production you increase and how many people you have, because you have a challenge of employment. Does the mechanization of farming reduce employment?
Very interesting question, Sanjay, and I've got a whole chapter in my book. And
I will buy it.
The title of the chapter is 100 million too many. I'm saying 100 million too many out of 150 million farmers in India. So exactly the point, we cannot afford to actually give a very viable business model to 150 million farmers.
No, that is why this Atmanirbhar or making greenfield projects in rural India is not a very good project as far as employment is concerned. But for someone told me for every 10% increase in the production or profitability, only 1% increase in manpower, in employment. But if you look construction, it is much higher. The coefficient of employment does not value that much in manufacturing. So you may increase manufacturing, but it will not add to employment. If it doesn't add to employment, it doesn't increase consumption. So rich will become richer, poor will become poorer.
So it has to be services. It has to be services.
It has to be services. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have a lot more questions. I think the time is running out. I just wanted to hand over to our mentor and guide, Mr. Pradeep Kashyap. Sir, over to you for your last.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I've been listening with great interest to these great minds, and I must say that for 30 years I talked about rural marketing, but then I heard the Dalai Lama say that when we talk, we don't learn anything. When we listen, we learn. So I've taken that advice rather seriously. And I now just want to learn from all of you. And I must say that the quality of presentations and discussions were of a very high order, and also the way the whole thing has been organized. So Ben, you and your team, I think, deserve a lot of congratulations for doing a great job. And this also makes me believe that the legacy of Mart will continue, because what you have produced is quality, and that's what Mart has stood for, and that's what I have tried to work towards for 30 years. So I'm very glad on that. Coming to COVID, I will talk only at a macro level because I've been completely out of touch with regular rural marketing and shares and brands and all that. And sitting here in the beautiful surroundings of snow mountains, it interests me little which brand is growing, which brand is losing out. But at a very macro level, what I want to say is that COVID has come, COVID will go, and life will go on. So I think our sight should be set in the long term. But if we can learn something out of COVID, certainly we can take it further. And here, I want to share what Santosh Desai said, that, see, in any situation which is unfamiliar, we adapt our behavior to respond to the challenge of the particular situation. And the other is where we change habits, and form habits. We change our behavior for good, and therefore that becomes a habit. Now, a lot of the behaviors that we are talking about are adaptive. So right now we're all wearing masks, but once COVID is gone, will we be wearing a mask? Right now we are sanitizing our hands and washing our hands 20 times a day. I mean, Unilever will be very happy to hear this, that that from now on everybody will use Lifebuoy, and all the Swasth hand washing programs that they run, including my son Dhruv, who was the marketing manager for Lifebuoy. I mean, they've spent a lifetime trying to train people to use soap before and after, but it hasn't happened. So will it really become a habit? If it does, wonderful, right? So I think that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. And as far as all the points that were discussed, since I was now listening as a participant, I mean, I agree with all the points, but I must confess that I also disagree with all the points. And I'm in a state of confusion. So just to take an example, when Sujit says that indebtedness has increased, now with COVID, what has happened is that marriages are not taking place. Okay? When a death happens, I'm not talking about rural, about a village life. The tradition has been that when there's a marriage in the family or there's a death in the family, you feed the entire village. And that's one of the reasons for indebtedness, because these are large numbers, feeding 200, 300, 400 people. Okay? So under COVID, this behavior has changed. But will it change forever? I don't think so. The only way it can change is if we can bribe all the pundits and use some of the NREGA funds to hand over to the pundits, that they should change the scriptures and say that henceforth there'll be no, food prepared and supplied to all villages. So one doesn't know what habits will change and what habits won't change. Okay? And I think the other thing is that, what Sujit also talks about, that he's been traveling into the interiors, and I dare say almost all his visits have been with Mart. Right? So, yeah, so there is a lot that Sujit, you have picked up as the ground reality. And I think, what the market research agencies give us is perhaps quite far from the truth as to what is the ground reality. And therefore, we need to have our ear to the ground. I'll just give you a simple example. Yesterday we went to the local market and we wanted to buy some buns. There's a local bakery which makes excellent buns. So the retailer said, sir, buns are available nahi hai. So I said, what happened? He says, क्योंकि गांव में अब सब लोग बैठ के चर्चा करते रहते हैं तो चाय पीते रहते हैं और चाय के साथ वो ग्लूकोज बिस्किट खाते हैं तो जो सारी प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी है बेकरी की लोकल बेकरी की that is now being used for making glucose biscuits, local glucose biscuits. Now sitting in Delhi or sitting in Mumbai or in Singapore, where Sujit you were at one time, I think the ground reality can sometimes be very different. So I think we have to make our way through these contradictions. As I said, I agree with you, but I also disagree with you because the reality, as the Buddha said, is somewhere in between. So I think we have to keep that in mind. The last thing I want to say is that, this is the third webinar, Ben, that we're doing. Yeah, and we have another one lined up on education at the end of the month. So in just a short period of a month and a half, we've done 4 major webinars with the participation of 300, 200 people. I would also like to see the industry coming forward. I mean, this is for the industry that we are doing this. Who's going to use all this knowledge? It is the industry, right? So I think it'll be wonderful if the industry can also join hands with organizations like Mart to promote this whole idea of learning, shared learning, and then spreading the learning to more and more people. Right? So in the end, I would say that I have listened to all of you for an hour and a half, and I'm certainly much wiser, but I'm not sure if I need to apply that knowledge. And in fact, my dear friend Sanjay Panigri said that, reaching out there into COVID-infected areas right now is a problem. It is, but Sanjay, since I'm sitting here and running it, I'd be very happy to do any market research that you want because I'm already here, so I've escaped through an e-pass and all, and I've landed here. And we were in quarantine for 14 days. And we innovated our own last mile delivery because we needed milk, eggs, bread, and daily groceries, which was not possible because we were not allowed to move out of the house. And the Pradhan came and explained this to us, and he said, the minute you go out, I'll get a phone call saying, ye Delhi wale aaye hain aur yahan pe COVID spread kar rahe hain, right? Mm-hmm. So we had the local chowkidar. He used to go and pick up our daily provisions from the retail store, which is about 2 kilometers from where we live, because we are a little in the jungle. And and we had left about a few thousand rupees with the retailer, ki aap hisab karte jana. And our life is continued normally without any disruption. So, necessity is a mother of invention. I think people will find their ways, right? So let's all work together to uncovering more knowledge which can then be shared with the industry. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Sunil Saab, Sujit Saab.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Mehrotra Saab.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you, everyone.
Sanjay Mehrotra sir, you have been in and out, but thank you so much for the enlightening session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And all participants, we are almost at the end of the meeting, so we can really close this. Thank you so much, and stay safe, everybody. And we will come through this in a flying colors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.